In the heart of the American Midwest, there's a small town called Maplewood. At first glance, it seems like any other sleepy town: small houses, white picket fences, and winding streets. But beneath the surface, hidden in the fog that rolls through the streets every evening, lies a mystery that has haunted the town for generations. There's a legend in Maplewood that goes back over 70 years, a story that no one wants to talk about, but everyone knows. They whisper about it in hushed tones at the local diner, where the old-timers sit, never looking you directly in the eye. Some stories are meant to be forgotten, but this one refuses to die. And for anyone who dares to ask, it always ends the same, with a warning: stay away from Maplewood at night. Michael Fields didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or any of that nonsense. A seasoned reporter in his late 20s, Michael had spent his entire career debunking myths. So when he received a tip about a decades-old mystery that still plagued the town of Maplewood, he thought it would make for a good article, a story of intrigue to help his career. But when Michael arrived in Maplewood that evening, something felt off. The small town of Maplewood was quiet. Too quiet. There was an uncomfortable stillness in the air, the kind that made you feel like you were being watched. As Michael checked into the hotel, the receptionist, an older woman with a tired face, gave him a tight-lipped smile. "The rooms are available," she said, "but you're better off leaving before the fog rolls in." Michael chuckled to himself. "I'm not afraid of a little fog." The woman's eyes grew distant, as if she was remembering something she'd rather forget. As night fell, the town seemed to change. The fog rolled in thicker, and the streets emptied, leaving Michael to wander alone through the quiet town. The only sound was the soft crunch of his shoes on the damp pavement. He wandered towards the town's small, historic district, hoping to find some clues for his article. That's when he saw the first strange thing: a woman standing motionless at the far end of the street. Her figure was barely visible through the mist, but she seemed to be staring directly at him. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, her face obscured by the fog, watching him. Michael's got twisted. He called out, but the woman didn't respond. She simply stood, unmoving. After a few moments, he turned to walk away, but when he looked back, she was gone. A chill ran through him. The next day, Michael went to the local library, hoping to uncover more about the strange disappearance that had plagued the town for years. He found a collection of old newspapers, some so brittle with age that they cracked in his hands. As he flipped through them, one story caught his eye. It was about the disappearance of a young girl, Lily Dawson, back in 1948. The article told of how she had vanished from her home one cold autumn night, her parents frantic, searching the town for her until the police were called. Despite an extensive search, Lily was never found. The most chilling part of the article? The last line: "The town believes the fog took her." Michael shook his head. It sounded like a local legend, but something about the story wouldn't leave him. He had to know more. That afternoon, Michael met with Jack Harrow, the town's oldest resident. Jack was in his 80s, his face weathered from decades of living in Maplewood. He was the only one who would talk to Michael, though his voice was filled with reluctance. "I remember Lily Dawson," Jack said, his voice trembling slightly. "She was just a little girl, innocent, sweet. But that night, the fog rolled in thick and heavy. The next morning, she was gone. Just gone. No one saw her leave. No one heard anything. Her parents were devastated." Jack paused, his eyes narrowing as if he were trying to remember something he hadn't thought of in years. "People say it was the fog, that it takes people, that it's always been that way. And Lily, well, she wasn't the only one." As Michael dug deeper into the town's past, he learned that Lily Dawson wasn't the first person to vanish in Maplewood. Over the years, several people had disappeared in the dead of night, always on foggy nights, and always without a trace. Some believed the fog itself was to blame, a strange, unnatural mist that seemed to rise out of the ground on certain nights, swallowing everything in its path. People would be walking home, and the next morning, they'd simply be gone. The town's older residents spoke of the fog like it was a living thing, something that could reach out and take whoever it chose. As night fell again, Michael stood on the same street where he had seen the strange woman. The fog was rolling in again, thicker than before, and the temperature dropped with it. His breath came out in small clouds, and for the first time, he felt a pang of fear, something he hadn't expected. He felt it, the presence, the eyes of something unseen watching him. Michael turned around quickly, but no one was there. Still, the feeling remained, as if the fog itself were creeping closer, tightening around him. Michael's heart raced as he made his way back to the hotel. The fog felt like it was closing in on him, wrapping itself around him. Every step he took felt heavier, as though something unseen was tugging at his heels. As he reached the door of the hotel, he glanced back one last time. A figure stood at the edge of the fog. It was her again, the woman, but this time she was closer. Michael's hand shook as he fumbled for the key. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. The woman, the fog, the strange disappearances, all of it swirled in his mind. The stories weren't just myths, he realized. They were warnings. The next morning, when Michael went to check out of the hotel, the receptionist was gone. Only a note remained on the counter. Leave before the fog takes you too. Some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. Some places are better left undisturbed. And Maplewood will always keep its secrets. But Michael Fields, he left Maplewood. No one ever saw him again.